Hey everyone, how you doing? And welcome to On the Clock by Draft Bros U. I'm Christian S. Rao here with Austin Morris. We are both draft analysts here for Draft Bros U, and we're excited to give you our first ever podcast, Saturday morning special for you guys here. And thanks for listening. We're going to dig into some great prospects. We're going to talk about the NFL draft, NBA draft. We're going to knock on a whole bunch of prospects, anything college related and getting ready for April and later on NBA draft as well. Later on throughout the seasons, we'll get into the baseball world also, but right now we're really going to focus on the football side, especially as this Monday we are going to see one of the greatest games, arguably, in a very long time between LSU and Clemson. Really looking forward to that one. So real quick, I'd like to break it down. As you know, my name is Christian S. Rao. I am a military veteran, also co-founder of Draft Bros U. Really excited to get this started. We have some great content for you on our website at draftbrosu.com. And I'm really excited for this. I think it's gonna be a great opportunity. I hope you guys follow along with us for this adventure throughout the year and throughout the rest of the time here at Draft Bros U. Austin, take it away. Tell them a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into this podcast.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Like you said, my name is Austin Morris, and I'm one of the co-founders here at Draft Bros U. A little bit about myself. I'm a graduate of two scouting programs online through the Pro Football Network, I think was the name of it. Been so long. But a graduate of those two programs, so I have a lot of experience with talking with professional scouts and learning from their wisdom. One of the teachers was a 30-year scout in the NFL, so a lot of wisdom gained there. Also, somewhat of a contributor still to Overtime Heroics, and I'm really excited for Draft Bros U. I really think this could take off and be something big, and I'm especially excited to get into talking about this year's draft and all the prospects involved.
We also have one more co-founder on us that's not on the show today, but his name is Nick Luba, and you'll see a lot from him, especially in our content on Draft Bros U, on our Twitter account, Draft Bros U, and sooner or later he'll be on the show as well. Also, make sure to check us out on YouTube, for we'll be knocking out draft type analysts. We actually just dropped one the other day about someone we'll be discussing a lot on this podcast, and that's Joe Burrow. I'm sure you guys have heard of him if you are into any prospects, arguably the best quarterback coming into this draft. So I want to start right away, Austin. I'm sure you're ready because I'm definitely ready too. Yeah. And let's talk about this game on Monday. This national championship game, we have LSU and we have Clemson. Two great teams. Now, Clemson beat Ohio State in the college football playoffs, and LSU wound up beating Oklahoma and beating them bad. Clemson obviously playing with a chip on their shoulder throughout this entire season and finally stepping up, making it to the national championship. They haven't lost a game in a very long time. Joe Burrow, that Heisman Trophy winner that we just discussed, man, he's amazing. And 8 total touchdowns against Oklahoma. And now he's got to go against a very tough defense, a lot tougher than Oklahoma, against Clemson on Monday. It's going to be a very good game. I'd love to hear your thoughts right off the bat about the game in general before we discuss some of the prospects, maybe a prediction, and then we'll dig in. What's your thoughts there?
I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a great head-to-head battle. It's a heavyweight, honestly. It's a huge heavyweight battle. I think it's the battle of two great coaching minds, between Coach Orgeron and LSU, and then Dabo over in Clemson. It's going to be a slugfest. I think it's going to be a very defensive-minded game, but also I think we'll see a lot of sparks of offense because, look at who's on both sides of the ball. You got Joe Burrow for LSU, and you got Trevor Lawrence for Clemson. So I think it has the potential to be definitely has the potential to be a shootout, but I think we'll also see some good defense in this game as well.
If you had to throw a prediction down right off the bat before we get started, who would you say that you got in this football game? I'll give you mine first so you can have a second to think about that. And I know a lot of people might hate me for this one, but I'm all aboard this Joe Burrow train, all right? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm taking LSU to win this football game. I love what they did to Oklahoma. I know that Clemson's a way tougher defense. My favorite draft prospect in the entire NFL draft is on that Clemson defensive side, which we'll discuss soon. His name's Isaiah Simmons. But, man, I just love what Joe Burrow can do. And I think he's going to be it. I think LSU wins this football game, and I think they win. I'm going to call it 4 points, 4-point victory.
Okay. It's been I've been weighing this in my head all week, and on one hand you have LSU, and they have the proven track record, like we talked about in our draft type video. They have the proven track record. Look at the teams they've beaten. They beat Bama, they beat Oklahoma, LSU, and they beat Georgia, Florida, all the top teams in the SEC they've beaten. And then you look at Clemson, and they haven't really proven themselves this season until they beat Ohio State last week.
Yep.
So I think there's a little bit of both, a little bit of momentum on both sides, because Clemson, they're feeling like they're the underdog. They have the chip on their shoulder. They're the defending champions, but they're getting no respect. And then you have LSU, who has been the heavyweight favorite from the get-go. I'm going to go with LSU. I think they're going to win. I think it'll be close. I think 4 points is very, very proper for this game. My issue with Clemson is they got really lucky on a lot of plays during the Ohio State game, and I don't see LSU making as many mistakes as Oklahoma did. So I'm taking Clemson.
The only thing that I'll say about my prediction, and I'm sure you might agree with me on this one too, is that with Clemson, if they're only down by 4 points like I think they're going to be, and the ball's in Trevor Lawrence's hand at the end of the game, we could have a different upset or different kind of prediction here. Because if you look at how Trevor Lawrence played against Ohio State at the end of that game and that game-winning comeback, oh my God, he's great too. I mean, we keep talking about Joe Burrow, but I'll tell you what, if both these guys are coming out of the draft, I'd probably take Trevor Lawrence over Joe Burrow. I think he has more of an upside, more of a ceiling. He's younger, and he's just wow. I mean, the wow factor on this guy is insane. That is literally, if you could think of one word to think of Trevor Lawrence, the word is wow. And
I've been following this kid out of high school.
Yeah,
I watched him play on YouTube in like high school championship games, and even then he was flashing, moments of greatness. Mm-hmm. And although I think Joe Burrow is going to be a great talent in the NFL, I wouldn't say he's a once in a generation type of player. I think the once in a generation type of player is Trevor Lawrence. I think when you look at Trevor Lawrence and what he brings to the table and how he has the ability to put an entire team on his back, like he did in the Ohio State game, he put that entire team on his back and said, all right, I'm going to take y'all to the championship game. To me, that's once in generational talent. Seeing him run the ball, that huge run that oh my gosh, I love watching Trevor. So I think, if it came down to picking Joe or Trevor, I would probably take Trevor.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. But I'm still taking LSU in this football game. I think all around, I think they win this game. I think Clemson finally goes down after a couple of years of not losing a single football game. I love Dabo Swinney. I love Ed Orgeron. Those guys are great coaches. So, I mean, I wish the best on both of them. We'll see what happens to Joe Brady. I wonder if he's going to get any kind of promotion, move up to maybe to the big leagues, or if he stays put in LSU. That's a discussion we can have later on, maybe next week's episode after the college football national championship. But I'd like to dig into some of these prospects because there are a lot of them. And let's just get in. Let's just probably go, I don't know, top three on each side. And we already talked about Joe Burrow, and we talked about Trevor Lawrence. So let's scratch those two because we already know that those two are some amazing ones. So top three other than the quarterbacks we'll discuss in this one. And I'll start, and I want to start on the Clemson side. And I want to start with, like I said earlier, my favorite draft prospect in the entire NFL draft. I think he is amazing. I think he's a specimen. I think he's a monster. I mean, he's just absolutely insane. And I think that this is the guy that whoever goes, wherever he decides to go, or I would say decides to go, whoever decides to take him in a selection process, I think he's a top 10 pick in my opinion, and that's linebacker Isaiah Simmons on the Clemson Tigers. Watching this guy grow from where he was as a redshirt, he went and played on the track team, and now he's that hybrid linebacker safety mix, and he's an animal. He has the opportunities and the strength to be able to be an outside linebacker, and he has the grip strength and the tackling abilities to be able to make that tackle for the loss if you need it behind the line of scrimmage. But he also has the ability to play man coverage and be able to take some of those fast slot guys one-on-one. He's a dangerous guy, and any NFL team would be happy to have him, and I see him as a day one starter wherever he goes. What do you think about Isaiah Simmons?
Dude, I think he's great. The thing that blows my mind about him is, often when you look at a draft prospect, you try to find a comparison in the pros. There's no comparison for him. Any time that you're talking about finding a comparison for Isaiah Simmons, you have to combine players. In my opinion, he reminds me a little bit of Anthony Barr.
Yeah.
With a mixture of Deion Buchanan mixed together. You have the ability to hit like a linebacker, but he also has the ability to cover like a corner. And that is such a rare ability. And I agree. I think he's a top 10 pick. I think any team that gets him is going to have they're going to have a game changer on their hands, because like you said, he's a hybrid. He can play anywhere you need him to be, and those guys are very valuable. It's like in baseball, when you have that guy that can play at every position. Those are very valuable. So I really like Isaiah Simmons. I think he's going to do well in the NFL.
I agree with you on the comparison there. I think Anthony Barr is the guy that I see most definitely if you had to pick one player, but he's definitely a blend. You have to find a couple players to match his skill set, which is something really impressive that you don't talk a lot about NFL rookies. You don't pick two pros to compare him to one. But Anthony Barr, that's the guy I picked. If you check out my article on Draft Bros U, the prospect profile on Isaiah Simmons, you'll see that my player comparison is Anthony Barr. All right, I gave you mine. That's my top other than the quarterbacks because, as you know, I'm all about that Joe Burrow train. I'm going to keep talking about it, man. I'm all about that Joe Burrow train. I'm all about it. But Isaiah Simmons, he's my favorite. He's just, man, I just love the way he plays football. And he's fighting with Chase Young, Ohio State, as a top athlete in the draft. In my opinion, I think he really is. What do you got? Who is your favorite prospect as we move forward for this game on Monday?
Well, I'll stick with the Clemson side of the ball, and I think one of my favorites is actually, you know what? I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go LSU side. You took Clemson, I'm going to take the LSU.
Let's do it.
I think one of my favorite prospects who really has boosted his draft stock has been Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver, jersey number 2 for LSU. Holy cow, the game he had against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Now, I know Oklahoma doesn't have the best secondary, but still, 4 touchdowns? That was an insane performance. Him showing his ability to go for the 50-50, his ability of being able to roast defenders. I almost felt bad for number 25, the guy who was covering him most of the game, because he was getting roasted every single play. And Burrow was just taking advantage of it. I think he's really boosted his draft stock. And I know a lot of people have him probably going around the second round, but I think after his performance, and we'll see how he looks against Clemson, playing against a better defense, but I think he has a possibility to sneak into the first round. And I really like his explosive ability. I think he stands a chance of being a good receiver.
I do. I think he does too. I like him in the second round too, and I think I'll even hold him in the second round no matter what happens on Monday. I think the Combine has more of an opportunity to push him into the first round, but he's great. He's got a lot of intangibles that this league will love to see. But whoever gets him is going to have a steal. Whoever decides to draft him in the second round, that's a great pickup. And if a team like Cincinnati goes ahead and gets Joe Burrow and gets Jefferson, then that's just something insane. We talked about a little teaser here for our draft type on Joe Burrow. If he trusts his receivers, Joe Burrow, and he trusts his linemen, he's going to make some fantastic throws. So hopefully if someone like Cincinnati, because we're thinking that that's where Joe Burrow is going to go, right? Number 1 overall. So if Cincinnati goes ahead and makes that call and goes after and gets a receiver that he can trust already for his rookie campaign, man, that'd be absolutely insane. And that'd be just outside the first round. I like Jefferson. I really do. And I'm excited to see what he does Monday, but I don't know if it's going to change his stock too much, not just one football game. But if he does something really impressive against Clemson, it might. It very well might. I'm going to stick to the wide receivers here, but I'm going to go back to Clemson. And I'm going to go to a guy who had a tough time against Oklahoma. He actually left the game. He got hurt on a very unfortunate play. He made a great catch, but his helmet fell off. He hit his head. And that's T. Higgins, wide receiver. And he was over 1,000 yards receiving, actually 1,115 yards receiving on the season. He only had 4 catches for 35 yards in the game against Oklahoma. Hopefully he'll be back on Monday. I actually haven't heard much about it. I'm sure that he'll be okay because there was talks about him possibly coming back in the game against Oklahoma. But I like this guy. This guy, to me, he's a first-round pick. And I think that this guy is personally, I think that he fights with CeeDee Lamb for second best receiver. Now, that could be a little bit of an argument. I'm sure we can get into that. But I like T. Higgins over CeeDee Lamb, and I'll tell you why for a couple reasons. I love his size. He's 6'4", and he uses his size, and he uses his hands perfectly with that size. If there's a ball up there that needs to go up and get it, and if those like Trevor Lawrence does it perfectly with T. Higgins, he puts it in that position that only T can get it, and he doesn't disappoint. And he's quick. He's not afraid to play that inside route if he has to. He can take hits. Unfortunately, when he got out, it was a non-contact hit, honestly, that got him hurt. He contacted the ground. But I like this guy. I think that this is someone who can really make a big difference in the NFL. And other than Alabama's Jerry Jeudy, this is the guy that I'd pick as wide receiver out of everybody else in this football draft.
Mm-hmm. He reminds me, watching him in the Clemson uniform reminds me of DeAndre Hopkins a little bit.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just because I loved watching DeAndre Hopkins when he played at Clemson and seeing how well Deshaun Watson used him. And, what a chance that Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins are on the same team. His ability, like you said, to go for the 50-50, to catch that ball when it's in the air, it's up for grabs. He has that ability to come down with it. He's very explosive, big guy, not afraid to take hits through the middle. I really like him. I think when you look at Higgins and CeeDee Lamb, they both bring different things to the table. CeeDee's the guy that's going to burn you. Higgins is the guy that's going to moss you. And
I like that.
Yeah, it's those two things you can compare, and it just honestly it's going to depend on which team prefers what. CD's like a smaller version. He can burn you. He's going to be the vertical guy that you want, and Higgins is going to be that guy that you can trust in the end zone. That guy you can throw a ball up, he's going to go grab. So I think they're both pretty even when it comes to where to their draft grade. I'm sure a lot of teams have them pretty much about side by side on their draft boards. But I think it kind of hurt Higgins a little bit having such a bad performance. He tried to come back after he got hurt against Ohio State, but he just wasn't the same. We even talked about it during the game. We were like, wow, he is playing really bad. He is not himself. So I'm hoping he's 100%, and because I know against LSU, Clemson's going to need him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so who you got? You're sticking with LSU? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go Clemson on this one. I'm a huge fan of Travis Etienne.
There he is. All right.
And running back for Clemson. He is someone that I feel is going to be a sneaky running back. I don't think he'll go first round, but I think he will go second round just because of the value of running backs in the league that we have today. Dude, he's phenomenal. He's explosive. I love his ability to plant his foot in the ground and then drive at the field. He's not going to be a guy that is going to necessarily lower his shoulder, but what he's going to do to get those extra yards is he's going to he's going to drive his legs. And so he's a really, really powerful running back that doesn't use his shoulders as much as he probably should. But he reminds me a lot of Darren McFadden, and just the fact of how, even though they were different sizes. Etienne's a little shorter. Darren McFadden was a little taller. They both have the ability to, like, once they see a hole, they're gone. So I really, really like Etienne. I think he's going to be a solid pickup and a solid contributor for a team. I think he's a guy that I would have starting day one. Week one, I would have him starting as a running back, get some snaps. But I think he's going to be a good contributor to a team. I
love how fast he is, and I love the fact that he's so versatile because he can go, the outside off tackle runs, that's his best. If you have to play him off the guard, then he can do it. That's just not his specialty. And he's great at catching the ball outside of the backfield. And that's something that we've seen with some of these top end running backs in the NFL, Christian McCaffrey, to name one, specifically who's really been a game changer in that position and helped his team win football games basically just out of the backfield like that. Having that two-factor and giving that linebackers on the other side that extra second of hesitation, not knowing what's going to happen if they have to protect the running back to the outside for one of those passes or an off-tackle run or whatever it is, or that misdirection, you're going to be beat because he's so fast. And he's proven that at Clemson. I'm really looking forward to see what happens with him. I think he's going to fall the second round. I don't see too many running backs going in the first round just because we haven't seen that too often. We really haven't in the last couple of years, unless it's like a super high talent like a Barkley or a Zeke. And this guy is a big talent, but the NFL is slowly transitioning and kind of taking the value away from the running back position based off that longevity factor. And I think that's why they're going to move down in the second round, in my opinion. But I love this guy. And as much as I want to talk about another Clemson guy, because you switched, I'll go ahead and switch. And I'm going to talk about a guy on the other side of the football who is a complete X factor as well for the LSU Tigers, and that's safety Grant Delpit. Mm-hmm. This guy is an X factor. The stats, if you look at his stats, it's nothing really that's going to jump out at you. But if you look at the way he plays on the football field, he's very trustworthy. He has playing that last line of defense. He plays over the top very well. He's able to play man coverage if needed, which is very important for his safety, in my opinion. He makes some big hits, which is really great for his safety as well. He's very trustworthy in that backfield. He doesn't really, in that defensive backfield, I should say. He doesn't really let a lot of things behind him, and he's a great tackler as well. I really like this guy. He is a first-round pick, in my opinion. He could easily fall to the late teens, early 20s, just based on his position and his needs. I think more people will be eager to take a cornerback rather than a safety. I'm thinking maybe teams like Tampa or Dallas would be a good fit for this team, for him. But we'll see what happens as that moves along. But I really like this player, and he's going to be great at the next level. Absolutely great. What do you got on him?
I haven't watched a whole lot of film on Delpit just yet. He's definitely on the list to watch, of course. But from what I've seen from the LSU games I've watched, he's a definite help when it comes to when you play like a two-man under and you have two safeties up top. He's a great help for covering those deeper routes. He is a hard hitter. He does tackle well, and like you said, his stats don't jump out at you. But that's why you can't judge a player based off stats alone. You got to look at the film as well. I think he's a solid player. I have him going outside the top 15. I think that's a solid place for him to go. I don't think that's doing him any injustice. Like you said, just with the needs that teams have and the quality of players that in other positions, you have a deep receiver class. You have a deep offensive line class coming in this year, and you have teams that have a lot of different needs. I think that's an appropriate spot for him is in the teens.
All right, so we already got 3 Clemson, and I just knocked out the second LSU guy. So let's get your next LSU guy as we end off this college football national championship prospect preview. Man, I'm excited for Monday. But who do you got? We just did Grant Delpit, and obviously you talked about Jefferson. So who is your last one for LSU?
A guy that I think is going to be a sneaky pick in the draft is Christian Fulton out of LSU, cornerback. He's a lot like Delpit when it comes to the fact that his stats aren't going to jump out at you. He doesn't have a lot of interceptions. He's only had 2 interceptions in the past 2 seasons. But what is impressive to me is his passes defended. He has 13 in 2019, and then he had 7 last year. So a big jump from last year to this year. He's also not afraid to tackle. He has 32 total tackles. I think he's a guy that has the potential to sneak into the first round. I think he'll go late first round if he does go. I don't think because of the corners that are in the draft, I don't see him going early. But I see him sneaking into the first round, and I'm excited to watch more film on him. Haven't watched a whole lot of film on him, if I'm honest, but I'm excited to see the tape and see more in detail about him.
Yeah, I love Fulton. I think this guy is going to be a stud. I think that, based on the depth that you have at cornerback, there's a possibility that he falls out of the first round, but I'm going to highly doubt it. I think that he stays in. I'm going to call anywhere between 20 to 26. I guess you could even say 20 to the end of the first round, 20 to 32, we'll call it, be safe. I really like it. I think that there's a team like New Orleans or San Francisco at the end of that first round will not let this guy pass up if he falls that far. But he's got some great ability, and the way that he plays fantastic in tandem with Del Pitt. I love this LSU team. They're already pro ready, and they have a lot of pro experience on their coaching staff. So a lot of these guys, when they make that step, it's not a big transition. At least it doesn't seem like that to the outside eye looking in. So I'm excited for this guy, and I could see him being a first round pick without a doubt. I think that's a great selection. And as I said earlier, I am super excited for this game on Monday because we just discussed 4 prospects, if you will, with the quarterbacks included on each team, and we just touched the surface. Yeah. There's guys here that we'll probably have after 7 rounds of draft. There'll be at least, and this is the low number. I'm lowballing here. At least 10 from each team being drafted to the NFL. Yeah. So I'm really excited to see what happens as we move forward. And Monday's game is going to be fantastic. We're going to talk more about Monday's game next week's episode. We'll definitely get into it. But I'd like to transition over now to something that was a big deal and something that we've been worried about and curious about. And we finally got the answer, and that's Tua Tagovailoa. He has finally made his decision. And he had a press conference with Nick Saban a couple days ago on ESPN. And to me, it was well-deserved. I think after everything he did for that college, he deserved a press conference with the coach. And he deserves to give himself some of that marketing, especially since he hasn't been able to play the last couple of games. And he did make the decision to go in and enter the NFL. To me, I think that's a fantastic decision on the business side. Who knows what's going to happen with this injury. And if he does, at least he's going to get some guaranteed money. Tua's a fantastic player. If he can come back and be anything like he was at Bama, he's going to have a great career in the NFL. I like him at number 5 to Miami, even with the injury, unless something barring bad comes out about his medical report, which I know we've all discussed. I think we think that we're going to see that probably closer around the combine time. But I like it. I think this is a great thing for Tua here, and I think it's great for the NFL that he's going to enter. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I was very hesitant when I heard some of the Bama fans said, "Oh, he needs to stay for another year." I'm like, that is so dumb, because why take the risk of still potentially being a first round pick and then getting hurt possibly if you play again at Bama and then you lose out all that money. I think it was a good decision for him. I think it's a good decision for the league. I too have him going at number 5. I think he stands a shot of being a great NFL player if he can just avoid injury. I love Tua. I agree that it was well-deserved that he got a press conference. I think that was very, very commendable of Alabama to give him that, considering all he's done for that team. I'm excited to see him play in the NFL. I mean, obviously, we've all been following him since that championship game against Georgia, where he came out in the second half and just became Tua.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super excited. I'm excited to see how his recovery process goes. I'm anxious to hear that medical report, as I'm sure a lot of NFL teams are. I'm sure some NFL teams are very curious about how his recovery process is going. But yeah, very excited.
I'm excited too. And, if something bad happens to that medical report, we could see him possibly fall into the second round. But I'm really to me, that's highly unlikely. I think that even if there's something bad happens to that medical report, we're going to see a team that's in the playoffs right now. They're going to take a chance on him, like a team like Green Bay Packers or New England Patriots, who have a quarterback that's about to be retired or about to be moved on, and let them sit behind and let that player heal. So I don't see him falling out of the first round. And to me, I don't see him slipping out of the top 5. I think he's a great quarterback, and I think he has the skill to do what's needed at the next level. And Miami's the perfect fit because they're not going to be rebuilding, they are going to be rebuilding again next year. And if he can't become the week 1 starter and they have to, re-sign Fitzmagic, who we all know can do what he needs to do as that journeyman and go ahead and win them a couple football games and keep that culture alive on the Miami football team, then so be it. And he could learn a lot of things from Ryan Fitzpatrick too. He's a very smart-minded quarterback. I mean, the guy's has an Ivy League degree. He's smart. He knows where it is. So I really like this decision for him for him going to the NFL. And I hope everything works out for him. And we'll talk way more about Tua in the next couple episodes as well. Something that's going to be on our minds all the way through April. And I just can't wait for it. But we're going to talk about another quarterback real fast, and that's your favorite quarterback in the entire NFL draft this year, and that's Jake Fromm. And Jake Fromm has decided to also declare for the NFL draft. Some people were concerned that he might stay for one more season with the University of Georgia, especially after the decision with Tua. That obviously wasn't the case. He decided it was right for him to move on to enter the NFL draft. And he could be a first-round pick. Some people think that. I personally think that he might fall out of it, especially since Tua is in there. But this is your favorite guy. I don't want to dog him too much. So what do you want to say about your favorite quarterback, Jake Fromm?
You need to work on your sarcasm, Christian. Yeah, I'm not the highest on Fromm. I think he has the potential to be a good NFL quarterback. He just has a lot he needs to work on. I don't see him as a first rounder. I see him as a second rounder. I see him slipping, but I can see a team falling in love with him. When you look at the guy on tape, he has a lot of good intangibles. He's a leader. It's not an easy task leading your team to the national championship in your freshman season. He's a competitor. He beat out Jacob Eason, another draft prospect that's in Washington, and he also was able to hold on to his job from Justin Fields, who's a quarterback at Ohio State. So he's a competitor. He's just there's some things he needs to work on. He needs to work on his accuracy, throwing longer passes. When you get him outside of 25 yards, that's when his accuracy really starts to break down. But if you allow him to sit into the pocket and get comfortable, he will shred you apart. One of the things that I've really noticed about him that I actually really like, imagine that, is his pocket presence. In my opinion, he has one of the best pocket presence traits in the draft. Him and Joe Burrow are both up there for me when it comes to who has the best. But I think Jake Fromm's going to be okay. He's not my favorite quarterback in the draft. Obviously, my girlfriend doesn't like him either. She was so happy when he declared for the draft. Yeah, I think Fromm will be okay. He just needs to sit for a year and learn.
All right. Well, there you have it. We have two quarterbacks entering the NFL draft. At least one of them are going to go in the first round, maybe two, but no way Tua drops. I don't care unless some crazy medical stuff happens. I don't see that happening. Real quick, let's just end off before this declaring should I stay or should I go segment with anything else you have. I'm going to add one more in. Cade Mays from the University of Georgia. I'm going to add that one in. Offensive lineman from the University of Georgia. He has decided to enter the transfer protocol. Now, this isn't entering the draft. This isn't, it's deciding to stay at Georgia. He's deciding to enter the transfer protocol. This is an offensive lineman who started all 11 games for Georgia last year, and he is deciding to move on. And he looks like he's going to transfer to be with his brother and be on the offensive line. University of Tennessee. This is big for Georgia. They're already losing out on Jake Fromm. Now he's going on. Now Cade May, one of their star offensive tackle, moving to Tennessee. This is big, and this could be something that could hurt Georgia moving forward. I'd like to hear your thoughts real quick.
Oh, man, I think Georgia's line is going to take a hit. Their offensive line is going to take a hit because you're already losing Andrew Thomas, too, because he's going to be in the draft this year. Just a phenomenal offensive lineman. So it's going to be interesting to see what Georgia looks like next year. I'm not sure what their quarterback situation looks like. I'm not sure if they were one of the ones who were able to get one of the top recruits, QB recruits, for the season. But obviously their offensive line is going to take a hit, losing Cade, losing Thomas. And it's going to be a very different Georgia team. It's going to be new quarterback, new running back, new offensive line. It's going to be interesting to see. I would be a little concerned if I was a Georgia fan about the state of your offensive line for next year.
Well, and if anybody can do it, it's Kirby Smart. He's a great coach, and I think he'll be able to figure it out for sure. Anybody else on should I stay or should I go as we move on to this segment?
Someone that I think should stay, who is a second-round projected running back, is Shuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. I really like Shuba. He reminds me of Aaron Jones out of Green Bay. Just really quick, very explosive. He's not going to wow you with power. He's the old term scat back. That's kind of a trait that he has. But he's a redshirt sophomore, and so I think he should possibly stay for another year at Oklahoma State. Granted, like we've talked about, the short shelf life of running backs. So I think it could be if he decides to go for the NFL, he's given himself a longer career. But I think for the sake of his draft stock and the sake of having better film, he should probably stay another year.
Awesome. Well, we'll be paying attention to that as the weeks go ahead, and I'm sure we'll get a decision on what happens with Hubbard as we finally get to April 21st, the NFL draft. That is the countdown day for us for at Draft Bros U. That's our Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens. I'm really looking forward to it. But let's get into the meat and potatoes here, the most exciting stuff that you and I like to talk about, and and that's mock drafts. And today for the first episode, I want to just get into the top 10 picks. I think that's a great way to start it off. If we have any kind of changing or adjustments after that, next week, if we think that maybe someone can move back and forth in our top 10, we can bring it up. But next week, we'll bring up 11 through 20. And then by then, we should be sitting around. We'll at least know what's going on with the playoff teams in that order. So we'll start off 1 through 10. Obviously, number 1 is the Cincinnati Bengals. They had a rough season this year, and they are going to have the first pick. Andy Dalton, it looks like they're going to move on from him. And Ryan Finley didn't look like he's going to be the solid choice or the solid option for them at quarterback. I have them taking Joe Burrow. As I said, I am all aboard that Joe Burrow train. I'm all aboard. And that Heisman Trophy winner has had one hell of a season. Topping it off with the first overall pick would just be that storybook ending for me. Like I said, the Cincinnati Bengals need that franchise quarterback, and Joe's it. I'm taking Joe Burrow, quarterback LSU, pick number 1. Who do you got?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Joe Burrow. I know that there's not a lot of red flags concerning him, if any. I think the biggest red flag is just the lack of tape of just 1 year. Obviously, we've seen how well that worked out for Mitch Trubisky, but I think in Burrow's case, he has a proven track record. Like I mentioned earlier, they beat Georgia, they beat Oklahoma, they beat Florida, all the top teams in the SEC, and they beat Bama, which was an incredible game to watch, Joe. And I think that you can cast that worry aside about the not enough tape. I think he's going to be the future quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. I've seen people already getting custom jerseys of him. And so, yeah, I think Cincinnati is going to be that Burrow train is going to be pulling into Cincinnati here pretty soon.
Hey, I'll tell you what, whatever jersey or whatever player he does get drafted to or team he gets drafted to, I'll be adding a Joe Burrow jersey to my inventory. I love that guy. I think he's a great football player, and I think he's going to be a great player wherever he goes. I really like the leadership he brings. I really like his attitude. I'm excited for it. But let's move on. We got number 2. That's the Washington Redskins. Their season was pretty rough as well. They decided to fire Jay Gruden in the middle of the season. They had some ups and downs. They decided to put Dwayne Haskins in at quarterback, who had an okay year, but he's still really raw. That's probably the best definition you could say about him at quarterback. They add on Ron Rivera, your Carolina Panthers former head coach, who I think is a great addition. Having that Dwayne Haskins, Ron Rivera thing. If Ron Rivera can do anything that he did with Cam Newton with Haskins, I think that'd be fantastic. Yeah. To me, I think they go defensively here, and I think they go with the best overall athlete in the NFL draft, and that's Chase Young, the defensive end out of Ohio State. He, like I said, he's the most athletic guy in the draft, arguably the best player with the most upside, and adding him to that, the defense of that rebuilding Redskins team with Montez Sweat Oh man, that'd be great, and I think that'd be the best way to go for Ron Rivera to build that culture back up. I really like this pick, Chase Young, defensive end or edge for Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron. He's, I know all too well. He's a very defensive-minded coach, and so I think, obviously the Redskins believe they have their guy with Dwayne Haskins, and deservedly so. I think Haskins, if the Redskins can build around him and turn that piece of crap franchise around, for lack of better terms, I think that that Haskins could be a very successful quarterback. I think he has all the traits necessary. So, obviously I think they're not looking on the offensive side of the ball. I think if you're the Redskins, you got to take the number one player on the board. That's Chase Young. He's number one on my board. Fantastic defensive end / edge rusher. He, broke the sack record at Ohio State, which when you look at the linemen they've had, that's quite an impressive feat.
Yeah.
You can call Ohio State, you can call them defensive end university now, just how many top end defensive ends they're producing. But I like Chase at number 2. I think he's going to be a great addition to that very young Redskins defense. And I'm honestly kind of excited to see what Ron Rivera is going to do with him, especially if he gets Jack Del Rio as his defensive coordinator.
Yes, I really like that, and hopefully that's the case because I think Del Rio would be a perfect fit with a amazing pass rusher like Chase Young. I think he has day one impact on that team. I think he's going to cause mayhem to wherever he decides, wherever he goes. We'll see. 13 and a half sacks. What's that?
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I think right off the bat, I think even before the draft happens, I think he would be. If you had to make the candidates, like preseason candidates now, he's easily number one. I think it's him. I think there's a couple other ones we'll talk about. I don't want to blow out too much of what we're going on mock, but yeah, he's definitely one of them for sure. So hey, 16 and a half sacks or 13 and a half sacks this year, insane. And in 2018, he had to step up because Bosa was out, and he did his job. And now he's even better this year. Chase Young is a great athletic talent, and he's going to go, be fantastic wherever he goes. I think Washington's it. You got anything else to say before we move on?
What's crazy is he missed several games too.
Yeah, 2 games. Yeah, those 13 and a half sacks were only in 8 games because remember Chase Young was out 2 games with a suspension due to a loan from a family friend. And some people like to say that's a weakness and it'll actually ruin his draft stock. Personally, I wouldn't look into that at all. I think that's not going to do anything. This guy is he has a great attitude, and this is something that I think was a joke for the NCAA, and I think that NFL teams are going to see right through that. This guy is going to go, if he doesn't, there's no doubt he goes top 3. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's, Washington would be stupid to let him slide down. So at number 2, Chase Young, defensive end. We both agree that's where he goes. So I think we both agree on the next one too. We start to change sooner or later, but I think we both agree on this next one too, and that's the Detroit Lions. Detroit had a really weird season. They looked really good for the majority of the year. They were losing close football games. They lost a really, really tight one and a really controversial one on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football. I forgot who it was, against the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. And that just really kind of changed the aspect of their whole season. Matt Patricia was in the hot seat for a little bit, but he's held on to his job. Matt Stafford went down with an injury, and they desperately had some awful backups, I'll say. But I don't think they go quarterback here. I think they're going to hold on to Matt Stafford and see what they can do, or maybe add some free agency here. I think they're going to add to their secondary. They moved on and traded away Diggs to Seattle in the middle of the year, and we don't know what's going to happen with Slay in the offseason or later on. I think they go with another Ohio State product here, and that's Jeff Okudah, cornerback from Ohio State. To me, Okudah, he's a shutdown corner, and I think that he can easily be a number 1, or if Slay stays, he would be the best number 2 in the league. I think those two could be a great tandem, and playing tough NFC North games, having that secondary on them to fight against Aaron Rodgers, to fight against Kirk Cousins and those tough receivers on Minnesota. I like this pickup, and I think Detroit goes with that cornerback. How do you feel?
Man, I like Okudah. I remember just watching him throughout this year, the different Ohio State games that I've watched, and he's a shutdown dude. He he locks up receivers, and I think we might see Okudah Island become a thing because he puts receivers on the island. And I agree. I think think Detroit's in a position where they need to get either a replacement for Slay or a guy to go along with him, depending on what happens with Darius Slay. But I like Okudah. I think he's I don't think he takes care of an immediate need for Detroit. I think Detroit has a huge need for pass rush, but I don't think once Young's off the board, to me, there's not a rusher worth taking at the number three spot. So I think they go Okudah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think pass rush is something, but yeah, also if Chase Young's off the board, unless they want to trade down and pick up a pass rusher, no other pass rushers. I like some of these pass rushers other than Chase Young, but not at number 3, not compared to some of those other players. All right, do we have a difference here? I'm not sure, but let's see what we got as we move to number 4. That's another NFC East guy, NFC East or least, however you want to see it. They had this division was pretty rough this year, and that was New York Giants. New York Giants also with a coaching change. They go to Judge, wide receiver coach from New England. A little bit of controversy there, but he's got some great endorsements, some by Bill Belichick, Ed Orgeron, things like that. So really like what they're going on here. So we'll see what New York does. They also might pick up an offensive coordinator, a former Dallas coach, Jason Garrett. But Daniel Jones, he performed a lot better and a lot quicker than a lot of people expected. And he looked good. He looked really good. I think that they found their franchise quarterback. I think that there's a need for wide receiver here. I think that there's a need because of losing Odell Beckham Jr., but I don't know if they chase it at number 4 here. I think that they're going to go and they're going to try and help protect Danny Jones. And I think with that being said, they're going to go with Georgia's lineman, Andrew Thomas. I think that, if they can find the anchor on that offensive line to work with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and be able to help, electrify that offense on that side, I think that's the better deal. As we both discussed, that this wide receiver draft is very deep, so they can get a wide receiver later on. But there's a talent, a big time talent who could be a day 1 starter in Thomas, and I think the Giants go ahead and get that guy.
Yeah, great minds think alike. I think if you're the Giants, you got to look at investing and making sure that you're protecting your future. I like Daniel Jones. I think that if he is given weapons and if he is given protection, then I think he can be a solid starter for the Giants. I don't know if he'll be Eli level, taking him to the Super Bowl, but I think he stands a good shot. I agree. I have Andrew Thomas going at the number 4 spot. Recently been watching some film on him, and I got to say I'm impressed. He's not a guy that's going to overwhelm you when it comes to blocking in the run game, but when it comes to his pass protection, it's really good. He's very fast, very athletic, and he has a good presence of mind of knowing where his quarterback is in the pocket, which I think is a very valuable trait for offensive linemen. Because how many times have, watching our teams, have we seen our offensive linemen bump into our quarterback? And so, both Buffalo and Carolina have not had the best years in the past, and so we've seen that.
Yep.
But that's one thing I haven't seen yet of Andrew Thomas. He knows where his quarterback's at. He has a great awareness. I think he's a solid pick. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a day 1 starter, day 1 contributor. And, if the Redskins get Chase Young, that's going to be one heck of a matchup right there. So
I like that.
So
right off the bat.
Yeah. So I think Andrew Thomas is a solid pickup for the Giants. I think, like you said, receiver is in need as well, but they can get that later.
Imagine that right off the bat. I didn't even think about that. Two times a year, Andrew Thomas versus Chase Young. Yeah. That's 2 rookies going at it. Oh man, I'm excited for that now. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah. All right, number 5, Miami Dolphins here. Now Miami has 3 first-round draft picks, so it's a lot of up in the air what they're deciding to do here. But I think that they're going to go with their ultimate need at number 1, and that's quarterback. And I think, as we discussed earlier, this is Tua's spot to go. Tua could arguably be, if he didn't get hurt, he was going to go number 1. A lot of people think that over Joe Burrow. And I don't know if that would have happened now because of how great Joe Burrow had of a year. But Tua is arguably, if you don't want to put him number 1, he's the second best quarterback on the board. And number 1, barring without that injury. If his medical history comes back okay, and even if he has to sit out for, half the year or whatever, and he can't be that week 1 starter, Miami's not done rebuilding yet. This is a great spot for him, and I think Tua should be there. That's where I'm taking at number 5 for the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback, Alabama.
Yep, that's what I got as well. Tua, I really wrestled with this pick because there's a part of me that's like, oh, there's the injury. And the other part of me is like, but he's Tua. And so there's like two evils going head to head in my head. And I have to go with Tua going to Miami. I think that's a good pick for Miami. Miami, although they need a quarterback, it's not necessarily an immediate need considering they're in a rebuild. They can do a lot for that rebuild. Like we said, 3 first-round picks. You can grab a lot of good talent. I don't think they trade those picks. I think they use them.
I agree.
Get what they need. I can see them going for receivers later on in the draft, offensive linemen, whatever. But I think Tua goes here at this spot. I don't think they take a chance on another team getting him, especially when you got a team falling at number 6 who also is kind of in need for a quarterback in the future in the Chargers. So I think where the Dolphins are sitting is a good spot. I think they pick up Tua, and I think it's I think Tua won't play his first year just because of his injury. I think he learns the offense, and after another draft goes through, Miami should be in a pretty good spot.
I agree with you, and it's unfortunate. I'm a Bills fan, and so I mean, there's a damned if you do, damned if you don't for success for Miami, but. I love the NFL, and I just want to see success all around, and honestly change. Seeing a change of the guard in AFC East, which hopefully it's going to happen at some point. Hopefully, my Buffalo Bills are going to take over from these New England Patriots, and I think they are close. But I like what Miami's doing. I really like Brian Flores. I think he's the perfect guy for the job to change the culture in Miami. I think he's doing a great job. He's establishing a winning tradition down there, even while rebuilding. At first, there was those questions, but you could see at the end of the year that they weren't afraid to win football games and still be able to have those picks. There's a reason that they're not number 1. They were obviously tanking, but they're number 5 because they still established a winning culture. And I love that about Brian Flores. He's a perfect guy for this job, and I like the way Miami's heading. I really do. And that's as a fan, not a Bills fan. That's as a football fan. I like where they're going. I hate it where they're going as a Bills fan. But at number 6, as you said, I'm just being honest. Hey, at number 6, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. And, other than them selling tickets, they've had a lot of other things that have been going bad for them this year. One, they can't sell tickets. They're having a really hard time. Moving to LA seems like a really bad idea for them right now. Longtime veteran Phillip Rivers looks like the end of the road for him in Los Angeles. Do they need a quarterback? Yes, they do. And that's who I have them going here. I have them going with quarterback out of Oregon, Justin Herbert. I like Justin Herbert, and I think that he really moved up my board, especially after that last game. He was athletic. He could run the football. We didn't see a lot out of him there, so it showed that he was not afraid to make some changes and adjust. I really like what he did there, and I think he'd be fantastic for the Chargers. I think that he would fit in that scheme really well. San Diego, I did it. Look at that, man. Whoops. San Diego, I said. Los Angeles has some great wide receivers, and they have great tight end in Hunter Henry. And they have some fantastic running backs. If they could establish a younger quarterback in there, help him build protection, Los Angeles is a good football team. They just had issues with injuries. So if you put Justin Herbert in there, let him build up, I think he's a pro-ready quarterback. I really do. I like this pick. I'm taking Justin Herbert, quarterback, Oregon.
LA gets their new stadium, don't they?
They do. They finally get their new stadium. But who knows what's going to happen with ticket sales, though, because they've been having a hard time. They showed that game at the end of the season against Oakland, and it wasn't a home game for the Chargers.
I don't think it's been like that for them the whole season. I think the away fans have had more fans than actual Chargers fans. But that being said, there's a huge quarterback need for LA. There's no guarantee that Rivers is staying. There's no guarantee that he's going. And I feel like Justin Herbert's the pick here. I'm not a huge fan of Herbert. I think he needs to sit a year and learn and develop a little bit. I don't think he's a day one starter. I think if you throw him in the fire at day one, he's going to be a bust. I think there's some stuff he needs to. What I'm curious to know is, can he handle learning another system? Because we've seen how well Oregon quarterbacks do in the NFL. Marcus Mariota did not do well in Tennessee. So I'm curious to see if he can adjust from Oregon's very quick read system and learn a professional NFL system. I think the Chargers would probably be the best spot for him to go for learning. They have the system very similar, very quick hit type of offense. I think if Herbert sits a year and learns, I think best case scenario for LA is Rivers plays one more year, plays his final year, and then Herbert comes in after sitting under one of the better quarterbacks that have played, and then starts. To me, that's the best case scenario. I think that'll work out well for Herbert and the city of LA. I want to see the Chargers do good again, man. I really do. They had so much potential in San Diego. They were so close so many times to being great. They just didn't have the right pieces. So I'm hoping that maybe Herbert, starting, maybe he can get those ticket sales. There's nothing like a fresh new quarterback to bring in fans.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. I think that adding a quarterback right off the bat would help with ticket sales, and that might be something that they look at in a marketing aspect coming into the NFL draft. There's more things that you have to look at from a business standpoint, especially if your team is not performing well financially. So I think that might be something they look at, and it's a driving need anyways. So, and as you said, is that he could possibly sit a year. I think he could even sit a year even without Phillip Rivers there. They had Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor was a Pro Bowler in 2017 with Buffalo. So we'll see what happens. I mean, but I like this pick. I think Herbert would really solidify himself nicely with the Chargers. So let's move on to a pick that I know you're really anxious to talk about, and that's number 7. That's the Carolina Panthers. First of all, I want to talk about this Carolina Panthers team. Really love the addition of Matt Rule. I think that what he did in Temple and Baylor, it just shows his grind and his work ethic, and I'm really excited for him. Carolina's my NFC team. All right, I really like Carolina, and I'm really excited to see where they go. Right? Okay, cool. With that being said, I think that they take the best available here. I think that we don't know what happens with Cam Newton, and I think even if they decide to move on from Cam Newton, a quarterback is not what they're going to take. They would go through agency or some other way. With that being said, I like defensive tackle out of Auburn, Derek Brown. I think he is an absolute game changer on the defensive line stopping the run. And if Carolina is going to solidify themselves, and I think there's going to be, to me, you and I have had this conversation. We disagree a little bit. I think this is going to be an off year for Carolina. I think it's just not going to be a rebuild, but I think it's going to be an off year. I think we're like looking at 5-11, 6-10, something like that. But they're still going to be able to hold on to their guys. They're not going to sell the farm. We're not going to see CMC leaving. But adding in those solidified guys like Derek Brown, I love the opportunities. Derek Brown has the potential, in my opinion, to be Aaron Donald level. And I think that he has that opportunity. I think Matt Rule and his new team is going to see, and his new squad, his new staff is going to see that. And that's who I got them taking. So Carolina Panthers with pick number 7, barring no trades, because we could see this too. Derek Brown, defensive tackle, Auburn.
Yeah, to all the Panther fans who may be listening to this who are already hating on Matt Rule, y'all can suck it. Because this dude has been a game changer. He's turned around programs. And you look at Temple, Temple was a 1 to 2 win team a year. Rule comes in and within 2 years takes them to a 9 to 10 win season. And then he moves on to Baylor. Baylor is recovering from the toxic mess left by Art Briles. Comes in and, within 2 years, they're a 10-win, and this year they were a college football playoff, candidate.
And they played in the Rose Bowl. And then played in the Rose Bowl.
No, they played in the Sugar Bowl. They played against they played against Georgia.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But still, phenomenal way of turning around programs. He didn't have 5-star recruits on that team. He had 2-star, 3-star recruits on his team and was able to turn them around in that fashion. I think he stands a great shot of bringing Carolina back. I kind of agree with you that next year could be a rough year for Carolina. It's always kind of weird with a new coach coming in, new way of doing things, new system, new schemes. It's always an adjustment. And so I feel like next year can be an off year, but the ceiling is high for Carolina. I think they'll stick with Cam. Rule is going back to the 4-3. The defense is going to be going back to the 4-3. They're ditching Rivera's 3-4. So I really like Derek Brown at this pick because Kawan Short and Derek Brown in that interior D line sounds pretty nasty to me. Obviously, if they get Derek Brown, the defensive line is going to be looking really good for the Panthers. You got Brian Burns as a rusher, and then you also have Kawan Short returning back from injury, and then you put Derek Brown beside him. That's a pretty mean interior line, and that's where a lot of struggles came from this past season with Carolina, was their interior D line. And so I really like Derek Brown here. I think he's a game changer. He's a guy that requires two people to be on him. And I don't know how the pros are going to be towards him, but during college, he will be triple teamed and double teamed almost every single play. And if he got a one-on-one, it was game over. The way that he can disrupt the offensive game plan, the way that he can disrupt the offensive line, I think that's a big need for the Panthers to get back to have that dominant defensive line that they're known to have. I like Derek Brown this pick.
All right. So we move on. Number 8, Arizona Cardinals. And Arizona, hey, listen, you're not taking a quarterback this year. It's not happening. 2 years in a row, first round, you took a quarterback, you found yours. Kyler Murray is it. And Cliff did a good job there on growing Kyler Murray. I think he had a great year. I think he really developed himself quite well. Now you got to protect him. And that's what I have my pick. I have the Alabama offensive tackle, Cedric Wills Jr. That's who I have Alabama taking at number 8. I really like him. I think it's a step in the right direction. I think he is a very tough offensive tackle. I love what he did at Alabama. And I think it's a step in the right direction for Arizona there and to solidify themselves on the protection. They also have some other needs, though. Wide receiver. Fitzgerald's getting old. I think they have a need for pass rush. But I think ultimately, just like we talked about with New York, they got to protect their young quarterbacks, and that's who I have them taken. Cedric Wills Jr., offensive tackle, Alabama.
For once, we have a different pick.
All right. Look at that.
It's the same position, but a different player.
Okay.
I agree with you 100%. I think if you're Arizona, you got to protect your future investment. I love Kyler Murray. I think him and Lamar Jackson are going to be the guys to really continue to change the league when it comes to the mobile passer. I love Kyler. I think they'll be smart to get an offensive lineman. My offensive lineman is Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. Solid pick here. He is a very athletic offensive lineman. In my head, there are two types of offensive linemen. There's the athletic and there are the technical. He's the type of guy that I would trust with a quarterback like Kyler Murray. He's quick. As you know, Iowa's a very run-heavy offense, and they definitely showed that against USC, and they've shown it for the past couple of years. It's just the way they do things. And so he's done a very good job of helping their running backs out. He's not only great when it comes to pass blocking, but he's good when it comes to run blocking as well. So I think that's something that's very important for this Arizona Cardinals team, considering you have a very small and very quick quarterback. So I have Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle, Iowa.
All right, let's move on. We got 2 more before we end off our first ever episode on the clock with Draft Bros U. Hope you guys are enjoying this, by the way. And definitely, before we continue, I just wanted to say thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you are listening in a podcast form or watching us in the video form, thanks. Go ahead and comment below if we listen to us on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, or comment on our Twitter page at Draft Bros U. Any kind of comments about it or any kind of suggestions that you'd like us to talk about, any kind of NBA, NFL prospects, and baseball as we get closer, especially as these meetings going on. As you can see, he's got a New York Yankees shirt on, unfortunately, so we'll see what happens there. And he's got the cap, man. So what's now? I'd also like to apologize that you had to see that Yankees hat. And we'll continue with the rest of this NFL mock draft. At number 9, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Jacksonville, really weird season they had. Now, especially in the front office, they move on with Tom Coughlin. Nick Foles, Gardner Minshew, the whole quarterback controversy. What's going to happen there? That's not really what I'm concerned about, though. I think the biggest concern was moving on from Jalen Ramsey. They do have 2 first-round draft picks in that case. Will they go cornerback right off the bat? I don't think so. I think they'll go defensively, though, and they're going to take my favorite player in the draft, and that's Isaiah Simmons, that hybrid, that linebacker safety mix. To me, to me, he's a linebacker more than the safety. So if I had to pick one, I'd put him at linebacker. I love this fit. I think that he is the perfect athletic look for Jacksonville. I really like where he goes. I think that the defense has been kind of hurting. If they add, I think 2 defensive guys, which I think Jacksonville will this season in the first round. I just like where I like what they're gonna do, and I think that adding Isaiah Simmons is the best way to go. If Isaiah's there at 9, Jacksonville will be stupid to let him pass and move to 10. So that's where I'm taking. We'll go with linebacker / safety. The hybrid Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson.
Yep, I have the same pick. We're back to picking the same again.
Oh, no.
But I like this pick. I really do. Isaiah Simmons, he's a Swiss Army knife. That's a great way to describe him. You need a corkscrew? Oh, there you go. He's the type of person that he can do, as we mentioned earlier, he can cover in the pass. He can run. He can cover the run by tackling. You need him to cover somebody. He can do everything. And he's someone that I think will be a good fit for a Jacksonville defense that needs some help. He can provide that help in several ways, whichever way they need him to, whether it's at the linebacker position or whether it's at safety. I think he could be a very good contributor until they find a long-term solution for losing Jalen Ramsey. I think he's going to do great things in Jacksonville, should he go there.
All right, we're going to end up with number 10, the Cleveland Browns. And we can go on and on about the Cleveland Browns, but I'm going to try and do some bullet points real quick. Freddie Kitchens gone. Crazy controversial Freddie Kitchens is gone. Myles Garrett incident with Mason Rudolph. Sideline issues with Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry. Haven't found a head coach yet. That'll be a big, decision maker on what this pick will be. But we're going to go with top needs here, since we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know their coaching or whatever. But we're going to move on. And I can tell you this, that our picks will be different because I'm picking a guy that you just took a couple picks ago. That's Tristan Wirfs, offensive lineman out of Iowa. I really like this pick. Hey, Cleveland's been struggling to find that offensive lineman since Joe Thomas. They have not found that guy. And I think that, if they can give Baker some more time to get them, to let him throw the ball to the weapons he has, because, hey, he has weapons. He arguably has the best weapons in all of the NFL. Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt if he stays. It's insane. So the fact that they had an off year shows that there's an issue off the field. We all know that. But there was an issue of protection, too. And that was something that we did see on the field. And I think that that's why they go ahead with offensive linemen. That is the driving issue, in my opinion. If you had to say what is the priority of the Cleveland Browns for on-the-field issues, it's offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. And that's why I have them go at Tristan Wirfs, offensive lineman out of Iowa.
There's a lot of controversy going on with the Browns because I haven't really even heard coaching candidates for that job. I haven't even heard, big names. It's a dumpster fire right now in Cleveland. A lot of drama, obviously, with the Myles Garrett incident. There's questions of whether he'll even play next year because that was very unacceptable in what he did to Mason Rudolph. At the end of every game, Odell Beckham just has a little paper in his hand that says, "Help me," and he's handing it to teams as he's shaking hands. So it's not a good situation. Obviously, Baker's the guy. And offensive line is a extreme need for Cleveland, considering that every time that Baker drops back to pass, he's got 3 defensive linemen in his lap. And I do have him taking an offensive lineman. It's one that he's really been going up the draft boards here lately, and that is Austin Jackson. He's the offensive tackle out of USC. I've watched a little bit of film on him. He missed part of this year because he donated bone marrow to his sister. So just a phenomenal guy, great character, and the fact that he was able to do that and then come back and play this season was really awesome to see. He's mainly a good pass protector. He's okay in the run when it comes to run blocking, but he's a very technical guy. Sometimes he'll get burned, but for the most part, he's a really, really good offensive tackle, and I think he is what the Browns need. It's probably not what they want, but it's what they need going into this draft.
All right, well, there you have it. There are our top 10 picks as we get. This is our mock 1.0, and you can catch the entire article, uh, mock draft 1.0, on our website at draftbrosU.com. We appreciate you guys stopping by and listening to us today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back next Saturday morning for our Saturday morning special on the clock at Draft Bros U. If you want to catch us throughout the week, especially during the national championship on Monday night, go ahead and catch us on Twitter at DraftBrosU. We're always active. We will be live tweeting during the game. As always, looking forward to it. Austin, you got anything to add as we end our first ever episode on the clock?
Yeah, be sure to follow our individual Twitter accounts as well. Follow Christian at Christian S. Rao on Twitter, and then follow me at Armchair Austin on Twitter. We're all the time retweeting articles and especially retweeting the Draft Bros U stuff, and then we're giving our personal opinions on sports as well. So be sure to give us a follow. Thank you guys for listening. This was a blast. I cannot wait for more episodes and to get to talk about more of these incredible prospects for this draft.
And you can follow our third co-founder, Nick Luba, on Twitter at the Chicago Kid 23 as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next Saturday here on the Clock at Draft Bros U.